But up next, let's talk about this one. And this one is from at not_Reed H, who sent in a hot take saying finishers are becoming normal moves, and the Cena versus Orton match proves that. Now, this is actually very much relating to a tweet which I did like a week or two ago, where I was saying that I feel like in 20 years, finishing moves are not going to exist anymore, and instead it will be sequences of cool moves. Why? Because if you look back 20 years ago, you weren't really seeing many kicked out of at all. Now on weekly TV, we are seeing multiple kicked out of almost every match. And I think it's going more and more in that direction, almost like a video game. And I'm not saying that's a negative. For me personally, I feel like it is a bit of a negative, but the industry changes, it adapts, and you kind of have to learn with it, right? People have shorter attention spans now. Maybe that is a point to it. I'm not going to say Cena versus Orton is necessarily the example here that, proves it all, because you can have main event matches. But here's the thing, right? Ring of Honor in the late 2010s was where it really, there was just kickouts constantly. From there, NXT Black and Gold did it even more dramatically. And from there, AEW did it even more dramatically as well. So they're all kind of doing it. And I do just think every year it's going a step further, a step further, a step further. So I do think finishers are not necessarily becoming normal moves, but I do think the one and done finisher thing, which we are used to for so many years, is maybe in 10 to 20 years going to kind of go a little bit extinct as far as we know it. David, I want to get your thoughts out the gates.
I agree. I think that, I actually think that the model that we should move to, and it's a model that I think has been perfected by one wrestler, which is Gunther, which is to have multiple moves, all of which can end a match. And whether they're kicked out of or countered, eventually you'll wear your opponent down to the point where one of those moves will do it. They can be iconic moves. Gunther's style kind of revolves a lot around simple moves. So powerbomb, lariat, splash, those types of things. Boston Crab. They're simple moves. And I've always loved that formula of being able to beat you with anything. I think Osprey has a similar thing with the Oz Cutter, the Hidden Blade, all the rest of it, all these various different formations of things you can do. I mean, the difference is I do agree that, it does get a little bit ridiculous with the likes of the Osprey matches going on and on and on and on with 600 kickouts. I think other wrestlers, Michael Oku had the same thing. And it's impressive, really, really impressive, but it can become tiresome. To me, Cena and Orton was egregious because it was just AA, RKO, AA, RKO. There was nothing between those spots. At least in the Osprey matches and those matches, there are other things to kind of go around it, kicks and pile drivers and all the rest of it, other movements to kind of just lose you into the spectacle rest. Whereas this is just two moves on loop for 20 minutes. That's why I got frustrated with it. But I do think that there is a world in which it can work to scrap finishers and make finishers signatures and have lots of these different kind of things. But I also think that, iconic moves are iconic for a reason, and there should be an element of protection around certain moves. Think the punt, the Owens pile driver, etc. The Tiger driver from Osprey, those types of things. But yeah, I do, looking at that Cena Orton match and looking at the trajectory of late NXT Black and Gold and AEW, I do think we're starting to move away from it, absolutely.
Yeah, and Fernando says finishers must be protected. I'm in the same opinion of you, Fernando, but I do think so many people are now disagreeing that unfortunately it is going in a different direction. Also, we got Crimson Overload over on Instagram saying he loves our YouTube. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you watching. Clark, I want to get your thoughts on this situation because I saw you shaking your head. What do you think about it?
I blame video games. Back in the No Mercy days and the Revenge days, there was one button for a finisher, and each guy had one finisher. Male or female, whoever it was, they had one. That was it. And then the video games were like, let's do signature moves and give it a separate button. And then they were like, oh, what we really need now is there's just not enough finisher slots for all these guys, and nobody wants to hold R2 so hard. So let's do super finishers now. What in the wide world of sports is a super finisher? Knock it off. Punk said we can't say move set. I don't care. Finishers still matter. and they're definitive most of the time. Not all the time. A kick out of a finisher is still valuable. I agree with a lot of what David mentioned about there's been some some egregious stuff. There's been egregious stuff in multiple companies over multiple years. Go way back and watch Goldberg and Kevin Nash. It's quite a few spears and quite a few jackknife power bombs. It was often, right? And Hulk Hogan dropped the leg a lot of times in a few matches. It happens. Not a lot of people kicked out of it, but he did drop multiple legs. I don't think the finisher will ever be dead. I think about boxing myself, right? Mike Tyson lands that uppercut. That's the definitive finisher. Did it put everybody away every time he landed it? No, but we know what it is. We know what the value is. And it's not even the same as pro wrestling there because it's unscripted, right? You look at if Deontay Wilder lays an overhand right in, if it lands clean, it's out cold. And finishers will always have a place in this, and a special place for crowd pop and for the build to them. Now, one thing that I would really, really, really like to talk about is, can we get to a place where tension is built for the delivery of the finisher? And that's where David and you's points from earlier make perfect sense to me. If we're chomping at the bit for Randy Orton hitting an RKO, if he hits it 11 times, it doesn't actually bother us as much. But we saw it coming. We knew it was going to happen. And that's the difference there. The punt was the real finisher. Never got landed. But the punt in that match with Orton and Cena both ways, we all knew nobody's kicking out of that. That's the definitive finish, and it was still special. I blame the video game. That's the super finisher. It's their fault.
Ironically, I really don't disagree in terms of I do think video games is a legitimate factor in it. And the fact that now, it is bigger than life. There's a lot of big moves, a lot of kickouts, everything. I don't agree with your point that it's always been this way. Like, there are some examples you can find in matches to your point, like Goldberg, Kevin Nash.
Quite a few.
But in general, yes, but it was a handful at like big occasions. It wasn't every single week on TV like it is now.
No, that is true. That is true. But also, like, I think personally, there reaches.
How many stunners did Austin hand out during the Mankind match? Sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, sorry. There reaches points in life cycles where things kind of hit the peak. If you look at, I think a great example is NXT TakeOver Portland 2020, just before the pandemic hits.
Yeah,
that kind of reaches the apex to the point where you can do no more finishers, you can do no more big moves. It was like this mad, and it was a great show, but it is mad, just cacophony of stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, right, reset a little bit. Now we need to kind of take things back. Granted, that at that same show we had at that same time we had WrestleMania 36, in which the two main events or the two world title matches are just finisher spamming.
Three claymores for Brock.
You don't want to watch Braun Strowman versus Goldberg for more than 2 minutes, and you don't want to watch Brock versus Drew in front of no people for more than 2 minutes. So give you finisher. But I agree with Ben, and to your point is that Clark, there are a lot of those matches that happen. I've watched many of them, but they were a lot fewer and further between.
Right.
And then there's this kind of I hate the word super indie, but that it is a style that did generate that type of thing. PWG, ROH, TNA, these kind of things, particularly Ring of Honor, I'd say, and it just built and built and built and built and built. And I wonder if Cena Orton might prove a bit of an apex on that point, because you can't do any more finishers than that.
You can't.
Don't give them any ideas.
I mean, Kevin Steen and El Generico is like endless finishers.
Come on, guys. Let's not do any more than that, please. But if it it might be a point where it's like, right, now we need to take it back a bit. But again, I point back to the problem you hit is, and I pointed this out on X, if it takes Randy Orton 6 RKOs or whatever, and it can't put Cena down, but Austin Theory beat Cena with one 8-down down, what's the 8-down down?
8 down under is 8-down down.
Yeah, suddenly it creates this massive.
Stole that from Usher.
Yeah, still creates this massive inconsistency where you can go, hang on, how did it take this many in this match and this many in this match when Randy Orton is clearly a better wrestler than Austin Theory is?
Well, so, maybe it's not. Maybe that's foreshadowing that Austin Theory is going to be the one to end this reign, and Austin Theory is getting a main event pause once again. Confirmed. You heard it here first. Well done, David.